make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And then we're just going to hang out tonight. I've got some baits that I recently picked up, not very many, but that I do want to talk about and go over a couple of the main details. And then I've got a few baits that are kind of pre-rigged that I maybe want to talk about. So we'll just give people a few minutes to hopefully get the notification and start rolling in here, and we'll talk about some of this stuff. But hope everybody's been doing well. It is, end of February here, February 23rd. So quite frankly, it is still the dead of winter for me. I know it's wild that, as we follow professional bass fishing, we see that the season is underway. And in a lot of these places, it is not only pre-spawn, but they are spawning in a lot of places. So it makes me super jealous. And yeah, it's unfortunate that I won't be able to make it out on the water for at least another month. And then even still, it's going to be slow and tricky for me. So it's fascinating and cool to see, what people are up to in other parts of the country. But yeah, for now, I'm still dreaming, so Tennessee Bassmaster, what's up? Daniel T, what's up? How you guys doing? It's over 80. I am jealous. Are you in Tennessee or are you in Florida, man? That is nuts. So, yeah, like I said, we're just going to give people a couple of minutes to hop in here before talk about the few things that I've got that I really wanted to talk about if you guys are down. And then, yeah, I figured we'll probably just be on for a little bit shorter than normal tonight, maybe about an hour or so. But I'm going to give people just a minute. I have got a bourbon to drink tonight, and glad to be drinking it with you guys, even if it's just a couple of you. Yo, Daniel, would you send a quick message to the Instagram group and see if anybody's interested in jumping on here? I'm wondering if maybe notifications didn't pop or what. But regardless, I am drinking a little Pinhook bourbon tonight. This is a really cool series of bourbons. I might have talked about it once before, but yeah, it's got this horse theme, and all of the different bourbons have their own name. So you'll see that this horse name is Bourbondini, and they've got some interesting and cool little quirky facts about the horse and then about the bourbon. This is 100 proof, and I believe it's an 8-year, or maybe they don't actually mention the age statement on this because it is a very well and complexly blended bourbon. I follow the guy who is the master blender at this distillery, and it's pretty wild to see what goes into all of the tasting and ultimately blending to then ultimately come up with the final product. So cheers, everybody who's drinking or not drinking. Maybe Brendan is drinking some 10-year H2O again tonight. So some of you guys are watching 2 streams at the same time, and that's cool. I'm not totally surprised because I know Matt was just on and literally probably still is. I just backed out of there 1 minute before going live on here. So Tim Dunn not drinking tonight, no big deal, dude. Nobody needs to be joining me. So anyway, I've got a few baits that I picked up the other day at Bass Pro, of all places. I go to Bass Pro probably once a month, maybe. And I don't always buy stuff, but sometimes they do have stuff in that is new that I have not yet tried. And this happened to be one of them. So let's start with the one that I'm perhaps most intrigued by. And I've heard a few people talk about it so far, but not many. And all right, Matt just ended. What's up, everybody? Adam Odin in the house. Oh, dude, I haven't checked my messages since I responded to you earlier today. I didn't know that maybe that was something that you wanted to do tonight, but um, I am open to it. If you want to fire away with, well, I'll look at this message real quick. We can talk about the few things that I had in mind that I just kind of have had on my mind and want to talk about. And then by all means, I'd be happy to do that if you're in. And shoot, where did you hit me up? Oh, this is on Instagram. Okay. Wow. Sorry, I didn't see that, man. Okay. I haven't put any thought into it, so I wouldn't want to rush it per se, but we could do the general thought and then start the shopping process. I also was thinking maybe I'd show you guys land big fish since I was talking about that last night on Adam's stream. So the bait that I picked up two of and am pretty excited to try is the Rocco. This is the new Rapala square bill in the Ott's Garage series of baits. So, you know, the OG Slim was first to come out on the market a couple of years ago, and then its baby brother last year in the OG Tiny, and now this is the OG Rocco. So this is a standard size square bill crankbait. I want to say it's like a 1.5 size, weighs 3/8 of an ounce. So it's right in that ballpark of like what we're used to in a standard size crankbait. Here's a 1.5 sitting right next to it. You can see that the body is the same size. So same size, same weight as what you're used to in most of your 1.5 size square bills. But a couple things that make this thing unique are obviously that it's made out of balsa wood. So that is the main draw here with the OG series and Rapala baits in general. Obviously not all of Rapala baits, but Rapala is rock solid and they make good baits, especially those that are in balsa. Solid bodies. This thing has a little bit longer of a profile than a standard 1.5 square bill that's a little bit more round, deep of a belly toward the tail end. So this is a little bit more reminiscent of like a shad wrap or, you know, many other Rapala style baits. But the other thing that makes it unique is the circuit board lip. Now, I will say there are a couple of things that jump out at me about this bait right away. And I did notice I happened to watch just a small portion of one of TK's streams the other day, and he was kind of looking at these as well. The one thing that he talked about that I had already noticed as well is the sloppy clear coat or glue on the bill. I mean, can you see that reflecting in the light? How it just looks sloppy. Let's see if you can see it on the underside as well. That's going to be a little harder to show you, but it's like they had painted or like they put too much super glue on the bill when they inserted it toward the tail end of the process. I think they probably finished the bait, they sealed it, they painted it, and then they came back in and inserted the bill and clear coated everything. But the super glue from inserting the bill is left over on both of these, and I have a hunch that it's going to be like that on all of the baits. And you know, it's not like it was intentional. Like it's ugly, right? On the top and on the bottom. It's like they didn't clean it up. And oh, you could almost see it there. whatever. Doesn't really matter. It is a circuit board square lip. It's a little bit different looking lip and pretty steep angle on it, but I trust that the action is going to be solid. And I'm pretty excited to try these. So both slightly different style color patterns. This one has a little bit of a like a pinkish hue to it, but is a basic pearl shad pattern. And this guy right here is more of a bright copper green shad, something like that. So I should know the names of these two colors, but I don't. This bait retails at $12. I will say, if you're interested in trying them, Discount Tackle does have them for 10 or 15% off right now, which, it's not a huge deal, but the baits are like for $12, it helps if you're going to be stocking up. And it adds up if you're loading a cart worth of stuff, if you're saving 10, 15% here and there. All right, let me catch up on your comments because you guys are now flying, and I apologize. I didn't acknowledge you guys during while I was showing the Rocca for a second there. So oh, dude, you got homework to do? Get it done. Tim, DT3 fat. Yeah. Not easy to find. If you notice, I try to talk mostly about baits that are easy to find. Occasionally I will share, a secret or something if I think it's really worthwhile, but I try not to send people down long rabbit holes of trying to find discontinued or difficult to find baits. But yeah. Yeah, not just dipped them. Looks like they just didn't wipe off the super glue because that it's not like it's uniform. If they dipped it, it should be pretty much straight across. And it's not. It's sloppy, but I don't really care. I highly doubt it's going to affect the action. The other thing that I noticed when, this bait was like halfway on my radar when I purchased it. And so then I went doing just a little bit more research and looking at it, seeing what Ott had to say about it. And I got to say, in some underwater video footage, it looks like the buoyancy is not quite that of what you would expect out of a fully balsa bait. Now, I don't know if it's because they had to put a significant amount of weight in the belly of this bait to make it cast well and to give it the right kind of action, but it looks like it doesn't back out super fast. So I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that, whether that's a good thing or not, but 3XDs, yes, but I like the Series 3 a little bit better than I like the 3XD. And that's just me personally for the sound profile, but Adam says we need to play a game on someone's stream sometime and see how many things we can get Brendan to Google. That's funny. I did not. This is still the closest thing that I've got, dude. I'm probably not gonna go lighter than a 1/16. Usually I'm gonna throw a jig head if I'm throwing a 1/32, not a standalone weight. This channel and Tactical Bassin, you think so? I'm not always trying to sell you on stuff, but I let you know, that if this is already on your radar and you're going to purchase them and you want to get them at a slight discount and not wait until the next holiday, Discount Tackle it is. So yeah, use my link if you want to be ever so kind. In fact, I think if Adam didn't or if Daniel didn't already, then I will go ahead and post my link right in here. Okay. If you guys are interested in shopping at Discount Tackle, I just posted the link in the comments. It is right here. Not going to receive any additional discounts from what is already existent on discounttackle.com. And for example, I'll just show you real quick. Discount Tackle's website. Let's take a peek. And I'll show you kind of the homepage and what's on sale right now, because over the last year or so, they have adjusted the website and how things function. It used to be like a pretty much straight 20% off on most things on the website. That is no longer the case. I mean, Discount Tackle has grown significantly, and as a result, prices start to kind of trend toward the norm. But day in and day out, they're always going to have some deals running. So 25% off Strike King, maybe just the Red Eye Shad, and off of Strike King Tour Grade spinner baits. Couple of promotions. Z-Man 15% off. So yeah, nothing crazy, but I did notice recently on the new arrivals page was the Rocco 1079. So I guess that's 10% off or something like that. But these two colors that I just showed you were the hot copper green shad and tuxedo shad. That's what they call it. Okay, so now you know for yourself what they actually look like a little bit up close. The tuxedo shad has a lot more, like it just looks pearl, but then as it's in different lights, that like pinkish, almost red hue to the entire bait really starts showing up. And then this guy is a lot more chartreuse on the belly than you would know. So one of those things that helps to see baits in person. And that's a big reason that I do still go to Bass Pro and Cabela's on a regular basis, because they're close to me and because that shopping experience does make a difference. I can't keep up with you guys. I was behind in the comments before, and then I just jacked myself up when I pinned my own comment. Sorry about that, guys. I think you're right, dude. That was a crazy good deal. And yeah, who knows? If we talk about land big fish, it's possible that some of you guys might kind of do that, but yeah, it doesn't bother me. So what we can talk about land big fish in a few minutes. I'll show you the other baits that I picked up from Bass Pro right now, okay? So aside from those, picked up a couple of soft baits, and one pretty standard, is the tiny pack-a-chunk from NetBait. But not just a pack-a-chunk. This is bait fuel infused. Okay, so it was only a matter of time until the majority of NetBait products started becoming available in bait fuel infused versions. Okay, and shit. There's my daughter, my 4-year-old. Why don't you guys talk about bait fuel and the yay or nay on it while I go tuck her back in, and hopefully we'll be back on in just a second. Sorry, guys. Please disregard the clicking sound. I'm going to mute you. Oh, no, that's not how I do it. You can listen to the clicking. All right. Sorry, guys. Oh, would you believe it if I said my 4-year-old has had a double ear infection, had pink eye, and has had a full blown cough and fever all in the last 10 days? And my other daughter has had strep throat twice in the last 2 months. So, pretty sweet. My household is sick, yo. All right. I'm skipping ahead. So, net bait fuel. What did you guys, you think it's hair gel? Sure. I will say that I am half sold on bait fuel. Um, I have a feeling that the bait fuel infused stuff is going to be easier to work with, be longer lasting, and really not have much of an effect on the baits, which to me is appealing as opposed to applying every so often, or pretty often, actually. And I found that unfortunately, it's not a great idea to just put this straight in your bags. You guys are about to hear me lose my mind right now. Okay, here's the rails. I'm off the rails, all right? It's going to be okay. This is the second time today that my 4-year-old and I are not at all on the same page. It's really sad more than anything, but in these moments, it's hard not to be frustrated. She's almost 5 years old and will not sleep through the night in her own bed. And it's a challenge. We're doing everything we can. So, guys, give me a quick thumbs up if you can hear me right now. I think I unmuted myself, but I'm going to talk about one other bait that I did not really know existed. Or maybe I had like briefly seen it, but didn't think about it until I saw these bait fuel infused baits at Bass Pro. And the other one that they had that really caught my attention in the moment was a toad. Adam, I appreciate the understanding, but yeah. So guys, this bait is called the BF Toad. And the packaging, the picture, and in real life, this thing looks a fair amount like a horny toad in terms of the kicker legs on it. Now, the horny toad's not the only bait on the market that has that design, but even kind of the transition from the body to the legs a little bit. But this body is a little bit more bulky and softer, and it's got this flat bottom, which is kind of, this is more along the lines of a Stanley ribbit than it is anything else. That flat bottom is going to make this really solid for skipping. So on the back of like a buzz bait, that flat bottom plus the bait fuel being infused is going to just be a little bit more of an attention grabber for the fish. And it was enough for me to want to give it a shot. I want to say they were like $5 for a pack, and there's 5 in a pack. So from a value standpoint, I figured this was a sort of not a must try, but one that I was curious enough to try. And I agree. Stanley rivets are a must have. They're a go-to for me. So we can talk about soft plastic toads for sure. I could talk about those a lot. But yeah, for the most part, the main ones that I use are the horny toad, the ribbit, and two others. So here's the horny toad. You can see it's got pretty similar profile to what I just showed you in the BF, but this guy's got a bit more of a deeper belly on most of these. Here's the ribbit, very narrow and flat bait with more pronounced paddle tail kicker feet. Awesome bait there. And then the Strike King Rage Toad has a ton of action, as does the Rage Shad. And then the Kitech Noisy Flapper, perhaps the most underrated toad style bait on the market. For whatever reason, like not many people know about the Noisy Flapper, but it is one that can be fished slower than all of these others that I just mentioned. So to me, that's a big drawing point if I'm going to fish it by itself. And especially if I'm going to be fishing it weightless. It's also a real good sleeper on the back of anything as a trailer, also as kind of a bulky cross style imitator. So I've talked about that before, but That would be hilarious if I was on mute this entire time and you guys didn't say anything, and here I am just chatting it up. And yeah, yeah, Matt, you're right. The tip-toed is good. I have it. I didn't mention it, but I find that in the package, the tip-toed gets really warped up. So that is one thing that just bothers me about soft plastics in general, is the way that they're packaged. This is not a bad bait by any means. I don't necessarily love the body profile on it, how it goes thin to thick, but these kickers do really well on the back of a buzz bait. So you're right about that. It's just the one in the box that I didn't mention. You know, the Raid Shad is in there, as well as the Stanley Top Toad, which hollow body, made to go with the Stanley double take frog hook, and it will float with that hook. So that's one of those things that everybody should know, but I don't think many people do. That Top Toad is lethal. Scooper frogs. Yeah. I don't have the Scooper frog, but meant to get them a couple months back. Oh, Adam. Yeah, see, I didn't mention the Z-Man toads because they're in their own home, if you will. But yeah, I've got two other toads that I do throw, so thank you. I just don't know where they're hiding at the moment. So I have showed them before, but the Z-Man goat toads and the Savage Gear Duratech toads are worth knowing about. And I say knowing about because I will say the goat toads is a very good bait, super durable and well designed. It's a little bit thin in the back of the bait where the tails connect to the body. So if you're trying to use a double hook, that is not a great bait for it. But if you want to use a standard weighted EWG, it's an awesome bait for that. Very, very good. But the Savage Gear Duratech toad is not. The chin on that bait, the way it was designed, blows out so fast. And so then what's the point in having, a Duratech material in your bait if it's faulty and is going to blow out and then render itself worthless for the most part? I mean, then you're limited to the ways that you can rig it immediately. So yeah, sorry that I don't have those immediately on hand. I wasn't prepared to talk about them, and I don't know where I have them stashed. That's kind of the issue with Elastec style baits. Yeah, the Raid Shads are good. Now, did you get a laminated color? Because if you did, that can be one downside with them. Like this shad color or bluegill color that I showed you. It's cool. And it, this bait runs like this. So this is the bottom profile of what the fish see. But this guy, it's laminated and it will split pretty quickly. So as you rig this bait, and I don't even know if it's laminated or if it's just like attached, if it's like two separate halves, but regardless, it's not super well sealed. And so as you rig this thing a couple times, you set the hook once or twice, the bait just wants to start like splitting down the middle at where that laminate is. So not a horrible thing, but in retrospect, I wish I had gotten a solid color, and next time I do stock up on them, I will. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The noisy flapper casts a mile. As do really most Kitech baits because of how they're salted. Yeah, I haven't tried the Gambler, but yeah, the Toads are underrated. You're Matt, take it easy. Adam's not trying to spend $1 billion right now, and you're just gonna, you're sending him way down the rabbit hole that is JDM. And yeah. But that is a cool frog and one that I will probably try this year. And you know what? You're a bad influence on all of us, Matt. Bass are risky. I haven't gone so far down the rabbit hole of like out there frogs because I tend to have a very narrow window of a frog season where I primarily fish. And I've over time kind of narrowed things down. I throw a standard walking frog like, I don't know, 80, no, 70% of the time maybe. And then I'll throw a popping frog mixed in with some type of other frog, whether it's a plopping style frog or something with a blade on it or just something different. But yeah, I throw a walking frog most of the time. All right, I'm gonna need to just run through these couple things real quick. You're currently in the max scent rabbit hole. That's funny. Dang you, Adam. I've probably got a 1.5 to 2 month window. It's pretty unfortunate. Now, I do need to get more bold in throwing a frog earlier, but I too many times in the past I've run into issues like Matt is experiencing this year in throwing a chatterbait. Like Matt, I really admire and can appreciate the fact that you at least know you need to learn the chatterbait and fall in love with it because of the power that it has, but you just haven't put in the time in the right situations or at the right time of year. And yeah, I can't go too early or too late. And I think you've done both of those, unfortunately. So for me, I can use it like 80% of the time. So from, pre-spawn all the way until, late fall. So seems that you're just timing things wrong, unfortunately. Now, there were a couple of baits that I've got pre-rigged or formerly rigged that I wanted to show you guys for whatever reason. I had this bait out, okay? One, because we need to talk about it. Caro. For those of you guys who are not diehard chatterbait throwers, sucks to be you. So this is the Depths cover scat, if you didn't already know. And I had relatively low expectations when I bought this bait. But this last year was kind of like the Geek Crack Bellows Gill was for me 2 years ago and continued to be last year. Low expectations going in and super pleasantly surprised and just kind of blown away at how well this thing gets bit for what it is. Okay. So yes, JP, this is a poop bait, and yet it has really intriguing action because of the way that it's designed with this heavier weighted tail. It actually does have a shimmy on the way down, not a classic wacky rig, if you will, but kind of a shimmy, and it falls horizontally, has an intriguing action, and then you can just pull it and let it do its thing back down again. So it's very Senko-like in that way, in that it's almost a do nothing style bait, but then better than a Senko can, you can twitch this thing underwater and walk it subsurface. And yeah, I experienced the same phenomenon that I did with the Bellows Gill, in that the smaller sizes look appealing to us and are to the fish as well, but they get dominated by small fish. And the medium and larger sizes get bit the best. So this is the largest 4-inch size. The 3.5 is the next size down, and they both get bit really well. And the 4-inch is huge. It casts really far, but huge is relative, right? I mean, it's not that big of a bait, especially when you compare to even a 5-inch Senko, right? But this bait takes a big hook. I find that it really prefers like a 6/0 hook. And so this 5/0 is relatively small for it. I think the reason I wanted to show you this bait is that I recently picked up the new Owner Haymaker hooks, which is pretty interesting. I'm really not totally sure. I had heard about them, and they kind of came onto my radar, and then I forgot about them until I saw them in person at Bass Pro. But check out this hook. I mean, I don't look, this is in line. This thing is bent way up. Okay. Pre-bent high up. So I don't know exactly where this is going to play most, but let's try and just rig up this this cover scat, which is already beat to death. So, you know, the nose is blown out on this thing. I've already caught probably 10 fish and tried to re-rig this a few different times. So that's what happens, is the nose starts to blow out first, because you do have to bring this in pretty far. And so now I'm rigging it even further down in the hook slot, so that that line tie is not exposed. I'll need to pull that back out to tie on and then slide it back into the nose. But let me show you that compared to a standard EWG, this thing in line sticks out. Okay. Most EWGs would be in the bait. Okay. So I'm not exactly sure. You know, that's not a great rigging, because I just essentially did away with that dimple, exposing it into there. But I do think that this is going to be an interesting hook. You're almost, I mean, it's extra wide gap, pre-bent out for you. So in certain situations like this guy, where you're going to expose a hook, I think it is a great idea, but I don't know exactly why it was made or what for. It does have an interesting coating on the hook, silky gray. And they're not super cheap hooks, but they caught my attention. So you guys tell me if you know what that is for. Got another cool rig that I want to show you guys. Yeah, it's a massive looking gap, dude. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Oh, no, I don't know if that's true necessarily. I mean, who knows? But yeah, it design-wise, it does resemble a crawfish with its claws in, the crawfish scooting away, right? So this is a bait best dead sticked, or worked quickly and then dead sticked, or like I said, you can walk this thing underwater. And I got bit a fair amount doing that, just goofing around with the bait last year, once I tapped into just how good the bait was, but gotta say, very good. So yeah, could very well be the point of the haymaker, but I'm surprised there aren't really many more hooks on the market. The owner offset EWG I've used for a long time is a very good hook. In fact, I think no, damn it, that's not one right there. This is just a Gamakatsu straight up EWG, and I think it's in a number 2. Now, this right here is a homemade Jika rig. Okay, so I've used a small Spro barrel swivel, power swivel, with a tungsten teardrop free rig style weight. And lastly, a tiny little EWG hook from Gamakatsu. And on that, I've got the Savage Gear Duratech Ned Salamander, which this was another very surprising, awesome bait for me. I think last year, maybe even 2 years ago, but last year, early spring, around trout and around smallmouth. It's yellow, pink, black. This Ned Salamander has a ton of durability and a ton of action. The Savage Gear Duratech baits have this ribbing that reminds me a lot of like the Geek Crack Bellows Gill and their baits. Talked about that before with like, here's the Savage Gear Dragon Tail Slug. Again, this guy in a 4 and 5 inch are made from Duratech, and awesome little swim jig trailer. So swim jigs were something that I kind of wanted to touch on tonight, but while we're on the topic of Savage Gear and their Duratech, the Ned Craw. The Ned Craw. Such a simple looking bait. This guy and that salamander were absolute killers for me. It's the realism, the action, the durability, and the scent. These have a it was just on the tip of my tongue. What? Damn it. It's somewhere between shrimp and I'm gonna get it later. It was on the tip of my tongue. I had it and I've completely lost it. But it's an intriguing scent in these guys. So they come 4 to a pack, and they're a good deal. They're, in my opinion, a better bait than the TRD Craws from Z-Man. And that's a big statement because that's been a confidence bait of mine for a number of years. But the Savage Gear Ned Craw, gotta have it. Okay. And then I did want to talk. I don't know why I wanted to mention this or bring it up. Now I do. Jermaine's probably not in here. It's past his bedtime, right? But Jermaine was talking last night on, should I say Frank's stream, Brendan? You guys had Frank on for his birthday, and Jermaine keeps talking about the slobber knocker, right? And I would too if I threw it early season and caught a big fish and was pumped about it. I would probably say the same thing, in that the slobber knocker works and it's great in cold water because that's what he was doing. So that said, when he said it, I was thinking, Yeah, I don't know that the slobber knocker or any bladed jig for that matter is made for cold water. I think they can do fine in cold water, especially in a situation where a lipless crankbait will play. But I find that it's usually not a cold water bait and does need some structure, if not some grass nearby. Now, a lot of people pigeonhole a chatterbait into grass, but that is obviously not the case. You can fish it anywhere, and I often do very well in areas where there is not grass. So, what I was going to mention though is that I personally think the thunder cricket, and I have always made this analogy, but in my opinion, there's the jackhammer and the thunder cricket. At least for a while, that was the case, right? Those were kind of the two that we usually talk about. And screw it. While we're at it, I'll actually just go straight to it and show you a couple of fire craws next to each other. Okay. So the jackhammer, they now also make in a fire orange blade, but I think that was after Strike King came out with theirs. So the jackhammer is the deal for so many reasons, right? And it's obnoxious. It's super loud. It's super consistent. It starts up faster and every single time. Whereas most other bladed jigs do not do that. That is one of my biggest gripes with all of the original chatterbaits, chatterbait elite, all of those is the startup time. I'm sure it has to do with the blade and how it connects to that line tie on the jig head. But that plus the fact that that blade has so much travel and does make contact with the head, it is so loud, hence the name jackhammer. It's got a stellar hook, stellar bait keeper, and a hand-tied skirt. Previously was, just thread tied, and now they have been updated to be wire tied. So that's pretty cool. The Thunder Cricket, on the other hand, has a couple of fundamental differences. So that connection does slide up and down, which gives the bait a little bit more freedom of movement, if you will. The blade does not make near the contact, and therefore the sound is much more subtle. Now, you get an awesome owner jungle flipping hook on here versus the Gamakatsu on the jackhammer. You also get an awesome bait keeper on here, but you do not get a hand-tied skirt. And check this out, because of that, a lot of times you deal with this where they're pushing that banded skirt up over that keeper and it all gets jacked up in there. Check this out. I didn't even realize when I had bought the bait or pulled it out of the package that this is all frahoodled, and that happens with this bait, but it's a disaster because then in trying to free these pieces of the skirt, they end up just tearing off. And this skirt is kind of trashed straight out of the gate. Check that out. I didn't just do that. This skirt is fairly well trashed. So that's annoying. And in my opinion, not a deal breaker, but is something that needs to be fixed. So with a lot of my Thunder Crickets, what I will do straight away is go ahead and hand tie these myself. I'll just cut the band off and hand tie this myself. So then right away it starts to go up in quality. But the main difference, and what I was trying to explain with Jermaine, or wanted to explain rather, is that this right here, due to its blade shape, its thinness of the blade. So don't know if you'd be able to see there, but The jackhammer has a thin and super durable blade, but not nearly as thin as the Thunder Cricket. And that shape being more rounded than squared off creates a more subtle movement in the water. This is a rounded bill versus a squared off or coffin style bill, if you were to equate it to crankbaits. So I think that the Thunder Cricket has been and still is kind of the finesse or flat-sided equivalent in the chatterbait world if you were comparing to, say, crankbaits. And Jermaine said that about the slobber knocker, and I don't necessarily see that. So I'm curious to see kind of where it fits into the mix. But for me, it was always these two that came first that were kind of the do everything, and then the more subtle version if you needed to tone it down a little bit. Now, I suppose we're getting into a territory of, say, if we're talking square bill crankbaits, right? And that's a standard square bill, a 1.5 versus a flat side. I think it's possible that the slobber knocker could come into play where like the depths evoke comes into play, where it can crawl through cover a lot better than the average square bill crankbait or the average chatterbait. So I think that's where it will play, is not necessarily in terms of action, but where it can go, how it comes through cover and performs. But I am curious. Yeah, Brendan, I'm not surprised. That is exactly what I would expect, is that the slobber knocker would be somewhere right in the middle. Obviously, I don't think anything is going to hold a candle to the jackhammer in terms of what it sounds like, what it does, at least while Z-Man's got the patent. So, yeah, the Thunder Cricket is definitely more subtle. And in my opinion, for a while was like borderline too subtle, because I was so sold on the jackhammer at that point and was using it day in and day out that when I started using the Thunder Cricket, I felt like, man, this thing's way too sensitive to the trailer that I put on it, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but just started changing my mind in terms of how I think about where, when, and what to do with that chatterbait. For me, the jackhammer could do no wrong until I started introducing the Thunder Cricket and realized, oh, there's a whole range here when it comes to quality bladed jigs. And the Thunder Cricket is almost all the way on the other end of the spectrum in terms of being super subtle. And now I get it. You guys are laughing at that, right? It's not finesse per se, but subtle, yes. No, not yet, man. I'm excited to use really all of the JDM chatterbaits that I scooped up late last year, and will make a point to get a lot of use out of them because they deserve it. And I feel like there's not a lot of new territory for me to explore, other than trailers, colors, situations, obviously the slobber knocker, but yeah, chatterbait is not going to be like one of my main focuses this year per se. Yeah, and most of us, before the slobber knocker came, we already had one or two baits that we knew about that came through cover pretty well, right? At first, it was the Z-Man. Oh, I'm gonna start forgetting about these. I've got all these in a box close by. Okay, first it was a Z-Man Project Z, weedless, comes with a weed guard on it, right? After that, I want to say Picasso came out with some good weedless chatterbaits with weed guards on them. Then Z-Man came out with chatterbaits with EWG hooks on them in the Freedom chatterbaits. And then most recently, Z-Man came out with the cross-eyes chatterbaits, which have pretty strong weed guards on them. And it's not a standard fiber weed guard like you'd see on a standard jig. It's got the two prongs on there and is a really strong weed guard. Debo talks about the cross-eyes a lot. Ow. All right, here's a couple. Guys, my room is so unorganized. So here's the baits I was just talking about. This is the weedless Project Z, and comes with a standard weed guard on it, right? So you can flare that thing out, and this thing will stay fairly snagless. However, it does ride at an interesting angle about like so. I want it to run horizontal, and this thing runs like that, which just looked funny to me coming back, but I've caught really some solid fish on the weedless Project Z, but that dates back a number of years. You know, it's got that old wild skirt on there that Z-Man did, that's like flared out, and I forget what they call that type of skirt. But then after that, you know, a lot of the Picasso chatterbaits came out with all of these wild titanium weed guards in different styles. So that's the Picasso Shockblade Pro, I think. And then that last one I was talking about is this guy. And this is the Project Z. So you got those wild eyes on there. But you get the weed guard, which is completely adjustable, right? I mean, you can go super wide on it. You can bring that in narrow and have it just be kind of one. And it is very flexible. This bait is hand tied. It has a little bit more of an archy style head on it. So it is made to go into cover a little bit more than the others that have still more of a traditional swim jig style head, right? So yeah, the Project Z is a great, you know, bladed jig more so than a bladed swim jig. And yeah, I will say I'm curious to try the slobber knocker, but you know, it's not like it's got a weed guard on it. So will it come through cover better than the jackhammer and the thunder cricket? I expect it to. It's not just that I hope it will, it's that I expect it will. And I'm curious to see kind of where it stacks up against the Project Z and a few of those others that have passed the test for me. Oh, Brendan, geez, dude, you might go live at 3. You're insane. Well, what time is it? Oh, I guess it's almost 2 or 1, 3. It's almost 1 your time. I'm not going to be on for another 2 hours. So if you're wanting to go live when I'm done, by all means. So if you want me to text you, but have a good rest of your night, Brendan, and talk to you soon. All right. So speaking of, that kind of leads into the other thing that I wanted to talk about, just being swim jigs. Of course, as I was going to bring the swim jigs downstairs to talk about, specifically the swim jig I'm most excited to throw this year. Before that, I saw one other bait that was pre-rigged on my desk upstairs that I wanted to show you guys. And this is interesting. Have you guys ever seen or used this? This is the Owner Ultra Head shaky football. So it's a shaky football head. So it's got that flat bottom, made to be a shaky head more than anything. I think it will do well with both big worms and swim baits and big creature baits. So I have thrown a paddle tail swim bait on the back of a wobble head in the past with some decent success. And when I first saw this hook, which is absolutely massive, that was the first thing that I thought to do. So again, this is another trashed bait, just like the cover scat. This has been fished a lot, and the back is all torn up and everything. But here is the size of this. This is like a legit 6/0 football head, and it comes with the Owner CPS spring built in there, just like all the Owner shaky heads. But it's a football head. So when I saw this a month or two back, I thought, I've definitely got a couple magnum size worms that would work well on that. But I also think either a swim bait or a creature bait could work really well on the back of that thing as well. So yeah, swim bait is what I had in mind for that. Now, swim jigs, a couple of like baby or finesse swim jigs that I'm perhaps most excited to try this year, and I've talked about them recently, are the Missile Ike's. Ow! The Ike's mini swim jig. Wow. Didn't realize the hook was this decent on this other swim jig, but this is the Ike's mini swim jig or something like that. But this is a swim jig made by Missile. It does have a banded skirt on there, but the skirt itself is super fine silicone material. And seeing that they made this in bone really got my attention, got me excited. And it matches up perfect with this new Missile Baits Mini D chunk as the trailer. So this as a pairing is just something that I'm pretty excited to throw. Only got to throw a very limited amount at the end of last season, as well as this guy. This is like, bordering on BFS swim jig. You could really trim this thing down, which I have not trimmed it down at all because I thought with the trailer, both of these at full size, it works quite well. And this is the Z-Man Midwest Finesse swim jig. I think that thing is going to perform pretty well, skip well. And then lastly, the main swim jig that I plan to throw most this year, and I am probably going to need to restock on a few of them for the sake of just not needing to do so mid-season, but that is the Evergreen Grass Ripper. Okay, so this is a downsized. This is the 1/4 ounce and a 4-inch paddle tail swim bait. This is the River to Sea D Walker 100. This swim bait has a ton of wag, wiggle, wag. This thing has kind of like a bouncing motion. It has a lot of wild action to it, but you can see that this pairing works pretty perfectly. And again, I have not really trimmed the skirt down much at all on this guy, whereas sometimes I definitely will. So for example, here's the 3/8 ounce. And you'll see straight out of the gate, I trimmed that one all the way down to essentially where the hook is. So significantly shorter on the skirt here, more compact profile, and in a 3/8 ounce. So a little bit more for, say, flipping style situations where I still want to swim it back as opposed to drag it back or hop it. And yeah, swim jig is a technique that for me has been killer forever. It's been a high confidence bait for me. I've consistently caught fish on swim jigs, and yet for whatever reason, uh, it's not a go-to bait in that I feel I must always have one tied on. It's more that I feel like I at least ought to have some with me as a backup, but I think I've fallen too much into feeling like the chatterbait was that for me, and I'm curious to see if I can adopt that mentality that I've had with a chatterbait to, say, a swim jig for this season and next. I'm curious to see how many more fish I might catch that, say, I perhaps wouldn't catch on a chatterbait. And one other thing I just wanted to show you is how that Paca chunk looks. And I might even need to trim this down a little bit more, but this is one of my little hand-tied rubber Ned rig jigs. So using a heavier weight, closer to a 1/4 ounce of the Z-Man Finesse shrooms heads with the weed guard, and then I just wire tie my own custom skirt in there that I've layered with really 3 different skirting materials, all being that more square cut rubber of green pumpkin, pumpkin, and purple. And then this trailer is a green pumpkin purple of that mini pack-a-chunk. Swim jigs get bit. True. Junebug bug? What are you saying? That Junebug bug is my go-to jig. That Junebug bug? This guy? I happen to only pick up the swim jig from Missile in the bone and the Junebug. Junebug is a pretty rare color for swim jigs and chatterbaits. And so when I saw it in that swim jig, I kind of immediately bought it. But yeah, the Grasshopper is a good swim jig. I agree. I mean, it's essentially just the jackhammer without the blade, right? Now it has a little bit more of a swim jig style head, but same skirts, same hook. It's a fantastic jig and reasonably priced for what it is. Classic Matt. You know what swim jig I'm going to say? The Depths Matsuraba. Skirt is just perfect. Head shape, dude. I mean it's a very narrow head, isn't it? Yeah, that's a good point. The Boss does make good stuff. They make good skirts. They make good jigs. Yeah, good point, man. Boss does make some pretty boss stuff, but yeah, they fly under the radar, as do a lot of more old school style companies that just haven't quite jumped on the bandwagon or figured out how to properly market their stuff in this day and age. You can't just go about putting your stuff in local tackle shops and expecting buyers from big time retail stores to call you in order to sell some product. You got to get your stuff out there, and you got to get other people promoting your stuff as well. All right, Adam. Do you have this rig? Adam Odin. If not, you need it. Okay. I don't know why I hadn't been talking about this head more. I guess I just had more like forgotten about it. I've been talking to you more about the trout eye jig head that pairs up so flawlessly with the 3-inch minnows. But this guy, if you're looking to swim this through some grass, and you want that more streamlined profile and that big eye on there, this is a light wire hook on there. That's a good rig, okay? And that's the Z-Man Finesse Eyes or something like that. Is that what they call it? I should know what it's called. And then the other thing is not talked about enough is the Willow Vibe chatterbait. So, I thought about this when in the same conversation where Jermaine brought up how, the slobber knocker is like the flat side of chatterbaits. No, the Thunder Cricket could be, but really this Willow Vibe is that. I mean, straight up. The Willow Vibe has an amazing startup. It doesn't mess around, and yet it is subtle. I would say it has a little bit more pronounced action to it than the Thunder Cricket, but you can tell it's a different vibration. I am just screwing this rigging up big time. Let's see if I can just force it on here. Come on, baby. That's close. Okay. So you get that same pill style head that you get in kind of the trout eye jig head, but then you get a totally different blade style in this Willow Vibe chatterbait. So different. I was skeptical when I saw this. I'm like, is there enough room on that blade for it to have a consistent action and not make this bait so incredibly erratic and inconsistent? There's a ton of travel on this blade, but I will say this thing is awesome. And I don't know, I kind of want it to stay under the radar. I will talk about it, but I would not be mad if nobody ends up liking that bait, because I will. I will continue to use it. I've got it in a couple different sizes and colors. And yeah, another one I don't talk about a lot because I kind of forget about it. It's almost in its own category and was, I think, released at like the same time as this Finesse Eyes or whatever it is, right? I think these baits were released around the same time, a year or two ago at ICAST. Yeah, Willow Vibes are legit. The dog's going upstairs. So I think that was all that I came here to talk about. I'm not sure why I've got this in that pile. Just a standard Texas rigged Z-Man goat. Maybe I wanted to show you guys this. I don't know. We kind of talked about this concept last week, but once or twice I've put UV resin on there to use as a little bit of a bait keeper, a stopper, if you will. And then other times I've really done it on hooks. Did I show you guys last week that I put a bobber stop onto a hook so that then you can just slide that there and prevent the bait from sliding down as you set the hook and it starts to loosen up. If I didn't show you guys that, let me know and I'll be happy to show you again sometime soon. But what has happened? I don't know how I just booted myself out. Will Perriman in the house. What's up, Will? How are you doing? Tim, I have, man. They seem to be everywhere right now, and I can't keep track of them. Here's all the Marabou trebles that I showed you guys last time. I don't know if I brought any of the newest jigs down here. Last time I showed you guys these ones, right? These are a lot of the like hybrid style jigs. So I used very thin round living rubber, mostly in browns, blacks, and then incorporated a little bit of Marabou underneath. It's going to be really hard for you guys to like see how nicely it's tied in. It probably looks a little bit messy to you guys because of everything going on, especially with the trailer tied on there. But so yeah, we've got a weedless finesse shrooms jig with some brown Marabou, and then that's a Maxent little trooper on the back of that. But that's going to be a deadly little jig, and a lot of these I made with the idea of potentially throwing these as a drop shot weight, and then some of these a little bit more moppy. I got with them. Went with longer rubber and more Marabou material underneath. So I'll work some of these a bit slower than others. Did I show you this one? Where I actually took one of those micro chatterbaits and tied a shite ton of Marabou in there. There's black at the bottom, then olive, and then brown, all layered, and then the living rubber on top of it. So a lot of bulk, but I'm curious to see how it acts in the water and just how much it flows, if you will. So yeah, those have been more of my newer ones, aside from like little hair jigs. And I showed you guys some of those a couple weeks back, but I am building a box right now. Not long ago, I was looking at the Plano Edge boxes, and specifically the smaller sizes. So the Plano Edge micro jig box and micro fly box, they're small. Okay, I mean the size of the box is like one of these Planos, one of these little guys. It's about the size of the micro jig and micro fly box, and Mini Max, Adam, you really didn't believe me at first when I said this was the 2.75, did you? With that Strike King Baby Z2 as the trailer. I mean, that's a flawless size fitting on there. But the Mini Max, another underrated must-have, and not because of the profile, but because of the size of the blade. This thing has an impressive action on it, but its blade is some half the size. I don't know, 40% smaller than the original. And that's pretty sweet. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I can fit a lot of material into a small jig. Well, Will, thank you very much for the kind words. That's nice. I really need to start sharing the wealth and giving away some of my jigs, because I've really fiddled around, right? These drop shot weights are going to be gnarly. I say drop shot weights, but this is a football head. The Z-Man, what do they call it? Like the Ned football. I think they call it the Ned football, but these are like in a 1/8 ounce. Going with black and red, and chartreuse, purple and black. Straight purple and black. Some of these I've, put some dubbing or chenille up front to make this thing flare just a little bit better. Oh yeah, like this one, we went ahead and put on that Savage Gear Ned Goby or Ned Tube. What do they call it? I mean, it's a mix between the two. It's a tube style bait, but I think they call it a Goby. A couple of these went a little bit wilder with just straight purple and chartreuse, but again, a lot of these on the football jig. And then a couple more standard, like hair looking jigs, but made with marabou. This one's been wet and needs to be combed, if you will. But basic and straightforward and effective. So, yeah, I've tied so many different jigs over the last year. It's hard to keep track of them, and I need to go through them, because I really started with all those different materials when it comes to rubber. I wanted to try flat rubber. I wanted to try square. I wanted to try round, and then I started fiddling with marabou and different jig head shapes. And yeah, here I am a few hundred jigs later, and I definitely don't need them all, nor will I be fishing them all. So I need to share the wealth and start giving some of them away. Dude, Adam, you got to be careful how much you trust Matt with some information. If all of a sudden you find yourself buying $20, $25 frogs and $10, $15 swim jigs, it's a slippery slope, man. You got to pick your battles, right? Like for me, the grass ripper is like a $6 swim jig, and it's premium. You get the high quality hook, you get a really unique head shape and quality paint and skirts that are hand tied. Not a lot more that you could want out of a swim jig. So for me, that price point is kind of where it typically tops out. But that said, I can be convinced of anything. And over time, I've learned to be more open-minded and versatile. Whereas like over the years, I have used a pretty similar head shape for the most part when it comes to a swim jig. This is about as wild as the range got for me. I would go narrow with something like the Strike King Tour Grade, which I still do throw. I would go middle of the road with something like the 6 Sense Divine. I do like the Screw Lock Keeper on there. It's just a quality swim jig. And then sometimes I'll go with the Beast Coast. Or no, this is the Dirty Jigs California swim jig, not the Beast Coast Gorilla. Beast Coast makes a more finessey swim jig that I do want to try and have not yet. But yeah, this Dirty Jigs is a little bit much for me most of the time. This hook is excessively thick. So if you fish around huge fish, this might be the deal. California swim jig, very, very heavy wire hook and a very bulky head as well. So a little bit different in design, but still a good one. Swims pretty stable. And yeah, you just have to throw this on heavier gear and lay it to them when you set the hook. But for that reason, I don't use it all that much because mentally, I've always thought about a swim jig as a little bit more of a stealthy or finessey presentation. And so that I don't know, when I'm fishing the bait, when I detect a bite, when I set the hook, I'm usually not laying the wood to them. But I've learned over time that I've missed a handful of fish by not setting the hook hard enough on the California swim jig. So that's enough of kind of a borderline deal breaker for me that I'm not going to be throwing that swim jig in most situations. I'm missing a whole bunch of comments. Sorry, guys. Daniel says, I can't say that I've ever thrown a hair jig before. Okie dokie. Daniel, we should talk. I'll send you a bunch, and I would encourage you to first try them under a float. Just get super simple with it. Treat it like a float and fly. Throw a light hair jig under a float in super difficult conditions or super cold water, and it's the deal. Oh man, Will's in Raleigh and it was 82 today. You guys, I woke up to -4. My daughter was on a 90-minute delay because of the cold, not because of excessive snow. I mean, we got like 3 inches the night before last. That all melted yesterday, but this morning it was -4 and it warmed up to like 15. So that's what I'm dealing with here in Colorado. 82 degrees. Dang, Will. Look at this. You know, Matt just can't stop giving rock solid advice for really expensive stuff. So, Matt, cut it out, dude. Oh, and let's not forget that I got way into tying feathered trebles for a while, about a year ago, right? So I do have a bunch of feathered trebles in a number of different colors that are in excess. Some I just did with straight tinsel. Some I did in more classic chartreuses and whites with a little bit of crystal flash. Very classic. Dude, Beaver Baron? Yeah. I'm down with that. I don't know how to when was the last time we did a giveaway on this channel? And how do I do a live giveaway again? Is there a giveaway tool within StreamYard? Because I am super down. Uh, I'll just say right now that I will give you 10 of my homemade jigs. We'll start with that as tonight's giveaway because why not? I need to start doing more giveaways each time that I do a live. You know, not necessarily to just be like Debo, if you will, but you guys know that I have too much stuff. And I know that you guys are interested in some of the stuff that I talk about. So I ought to just go out of my way, a little bit more frequently. And I know I'm super late on sending 2 or 3 packages out. Caro, Brendan, and wish I knew your name. Guy who won the last giveaway like 3 or 4 months ago hasn't gotten his package. So my bad, dude. Yeah, Will, I would be down to trade for sure. Okay. I remember we had exchanged packages once a couple years ago. So we should do that again, man. Now, I are you guys down to see Adam was on last night and was talking about Zoom baits. He showed a lizard in cotton candy chartreuse. That's a color that I don't throw, am not super familiar with, and it looked intriguing to me. It did not look on camera like it does in person. You know, I did a little bit more research today checking that out, but I mentioned last night that um, that Land Big Fish is one of the best places to shop online for Zoom baits. So if you guys are down, I'll show you. You guys are flying in the comments, and yeah, it was cold, dude. Wow, you guys are flying. Oh, maybe I should start the give stream yards. I should give it thanks. Okay. Let me see if I can do this. I think we've done it before. No? Yeah. Okay. All right. So I am going to. Oh, how do I share? Do I just share my screen? I mean, I've got a P, but I want to show you guys this. Boom. If you want to win some jigs, enter hashtag homemade. There's only 20 people in here right now, so you've got a pretty good chance. 10 homemade jigs, and I will consult with you guys on which jigs you guys want. A lot of these are either rubber or marabou, and they are hand tied, and I'm going to pee my pants. So you guys enter this giveaway. Hashtag homemade. I'll be right back. Matt, I saw you mentioning in the stream earlier tonight, like way earlier tonight, about bug baits. I mean, why don't you get on this guy right here? That micro larva. Some of the new micro baits actually look pretty good. Now, I suppose that's the only real bug profile of the bunch of the new micro baits, but yeah, you do make a good point that I think Z-Man does need to get into bug baits more. I think the industry is trending in that direction a little bit more, but yeah, dude, this one, I don't know if you're saying Shad one to that, but let me just switch here. This guy, I think, is my favorite. I think this is the Shad Fry. I'm not totally sure, but I will say I like it a lot better than I like this little baby paddle tail. Just at first glance, right? I mean, I don't know what's going to actually turn out to be the case, but given the action on these, I really like the amount of tail on this thing and just how they put more material way down here. And I think that's going to look really cool in the water. And with just the most subtle movement, that tail is going to flicker. Whereas the tail on this guy is a traditional, like segmented style swim bait. I've had mixed success on those, especially in newer ones in Elastec style materials, like this Savage Gear Ned Minnows. I have not really enjoyed this bait. I find that it is too stiff. Does not have nearly the action that I want in a bait this size. So I was able to rule that one out pretty fast. But I think the rest of the Savage Gear Ned lineup that I already talked about in the Salamander and in the Craw, which I already showed you guys, and then in the Ned, I thought they had like a just a standard dragon tail slug, Ned, dragon tail Ned. I don't know what it's called, but they make some good stuff. So homemade. How many people we have in here on the homemade? 12 out of you 18. Sweet. I'll give you guys one more minute to enter. Hashtag homemade. If anybody hasn't already entered, drop that in the comments. And I'm going to draw one of you guys in a second and ask you to contact me after the live. And I will send you a bunch of homemade jigs and or feathered treble hooks if you would prefer. Okay. So I know that feathered treble hooks can be really expensive. So if that is your preference, I'm using almost exclusively Owner ST36 as the standard trebles on these. And then I am using UV resin to seal the tips of these. It's all high-end materials. Ordinarily, if you were buying these feather trebles from Owner directly, I think you're paying like, I don't know, $6 for a pack of 2 of them or something like that. So I am willing to send you feathered trebles as well. All right, so let's go ahead and draw a winner. 1 out of 12 chance. You've got about 8% chance to win this giveaway. Actually, let me leave this up while I draw it, huh? Dun, 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 dun. The winner is Matt Doggy. Congratulations, Matthew Acevedo. And don't even try to say that you don't want it, Matt, because 1, you won fair and square. Two, I still owe you a package. I know you tried to deny it last time because you said you've already gotten some jackhammers in the meantime, since I first promised that I would send you some, as well as Caro. You will get some homemade jigs and a couple of jackhammer chatterbaits. Congratulations, Matthew Acevedo. Cheers. Sorry, Beefer Baron. There's always next time. For real. I am going to start making giveaways a more regular thing. Hopefully, I can plan ahead in terms of what I'm going to give away. But if worst comes to worst, we'll just kind of do things like we did tonight, where it just works into something natural, where it's something that I talk about. So, maybe it would be a couple of cross-eyed chatterbaits, or maybe I'd go digging and find a pack or two of some Geek Crack bellows gills, or a pack of cover scats, right, for you guys to be able to try for yourselves. But you guys know that a lot of hard baits, jigs, things like that, I do not ever keep in their packaging. I just, the second I get them, I pull them out and I put rubber bands around the hooks so that they can go straight into my boxes. I just haven't decided whether I'm going to put these Roccos in my box of square bill crankbaits, which, let's be honest, I have many a box of square bill crankbaits because for a long time I only used a couple of square bills. And then when I started branching out, it got messy. So I've got like 5 of these boxes filled with square bills. So you can see like this fits pretty easily. I've got 2, 4, 12 1.5 size square bills in here. These are all KVD 1.5s. Okay. So in essentially every color pattern you could think about. So from perches to bluegills to perches, bluegills, shads, clear shads, and then more bold chartreuses. I've got these this is the standard KVD 1.5. I've got Lucky Craft 1.5s. I've got KVD 1.5 rattlings. And a few other small boxes of just like standard 1.5 square bills. And then separately have, a box that's building, and there's a whole bunch of baits that need to be thrown into this box, but this is just kind of like one-off random square bills, all sizes as well. Got a separate box of 2.5 Lucky Crafts and KVDs as well. But I did think when I got here tonight that I was going to talk about jerk baits, because I've been organizing my jerk baits, and it's obnoxious. I didn't realize that I have quite as many as I do. Yeah, thank you. I almost didn't even need to say as I would have with somebody else, but Matt, please do contact me through traditional channels or on Instagram, or if you have my phone number, feel free to text me, and we'll talk offline in terms of what you want, what would serve you best, and I'll send that package out in the next week. That'll light a fire under my butt to send the packages to the other 3 or 4 people that deserve them as well. So Guggen Squad Flat Banger is your favorite lure. That's cool. Dude, I don't know what to tell you. I wish I had something to say to that, other than I have a lot of flat-sided crankbaits, and not one of these is a Guggen Squad Flat Banger. And there are others that need to go into this box, right? This is the new Fritz side clicking. clicking Fritz side. But yeah, I like flat-sided crankbaits, and I have a bunch of them. But I do not have any flat bangers, nor are they on my radar. Yeah. Branching out is part of the addiction. Will, that's a great way to put it. You know, when you first get in, you kind of dip your toes. You do things the responsible way, right? You learn what works. You double down and stock up on those things that work well. When you look around, your collection is not a collection. It is literally just what you use. It is your confidence baits. You could just rattle off what you use, when, and why. Eventually, the scales tip. And that happened for me about a year or two in to the journey, which is probably quicker than most. But for the last number of years, it has just been compounding, right? So, for example, my jerk baits, right? I'm not going to stay on too much longer. We'll just talk about this for a few seconds / few minutes. But here is just a preview of my jerk baits. Okay. Gators Adventure says they add up fast. And yes, Beaver Baron, you're going to think that much more so the case after I show you these boxes. Okay. This right here is my JDM jerkbait box. And this is most of my JDM jerkbaits. This is mostly Megabass. It's got some dual hardcore, some IMA, some Jackal, Shimano. And that's about it in, you know, it's ISM and a couple of, you know, out there JDM baits. But this 3,700 size box is filled to the brim with JDM jerk baits. Probably well over $1,000 this box by itself, but that is just my JDM jerk bait box. And then I've been organizing the rest of my jerk baits recently, and I'm kind of at this in-between spot where, you know, this 3,700 size box is a little bit more than halfway full. You know, I've got Berkeley Stunnas down here, 6 Cents Provokes, and Spro mixed sticks. I've got 13 Fishing Loco Specials. I've got Strike King KVD 300s, Rapala Rip Stops in the bigger sizes. And I've got some Lucky Craft. What are these ones? There's some Lucky Craft deep divers. Oh no, these are just Strike King deep divers. So these are pretty much all domestic baits, exclusively domestic higher end jerk baits, or medium to higher end. And then we've got a dedicated box to Lucky Craft Pointer 100s, which, you know, I'll always have in like a handful of colors. Ghost Minnow is probably like my number one in most Lucky Craft colors, or most Lucky Craft baits, followed by the MS American Shad. Do really like some of their bluegill patterns as well, even some of the perch patterns. But Lucky Craft pointer in the 100 is perhaps one of the more like time-tested classic jerk baits, and I throw the pointer in the 100, the 78, and the 68, but I've got just like, I don't know, 12 of the pointer 100s in this little box. And then in a 3600 size box, we've got a little bit of variety, mostly Rapala X wraps in that same size. You know, I throw the X wrap in the 10 in a lot of the same scenarios that I would the Lucky Craft pointer 100. Okay. So they're both 2-hook jerk baits that are very erratic and, dare I say, warmer water jerk baits. I've also got the Lucky Craft Lightning pointer. I believe this is a 98 in size. And I've got that in a whole bunch of different colors as well. This is a cheaper and even a little bit more erratic than the original pointer 100. The original pointer is like $15.99, and these guys are $9.99. I'm not sure what it is about the material of the plastic or what the design, but when I see Lucky Craft baits with their color patterns for $9.99, I usually try them, and then when it works well, I usually double down on it. So I do have this bait in a lot of different cool color patterns, like I do with the pointer 100, but and then also I've got like the evergreen crossovers that I just recently picked up, and some other hybrid baits in here that are not traditional jerk baits, right? The Jackal Soul Shad, so like a shad wrap style bait that is a suspender, but traditionally does better on a sweep. So these hybrid baits are going to work their way out of this dedicated jerk bait box. And then going a little bit smaller, I've got a lot of the same baits that I just talked about, but in a downsized version. So here we've got the Lucky Craft pointer 78, which not a lot of people talk about. I think most people talk about the 78DD more than they do the standard 78. But I will say the main thing that separates the 78 from the 100, aside from the profile, which is somewhat substantial, is the sound. The pointer 100 is loud and aggressive. The pointer 78 is silent and aggressive. So all of a sudden, when you switch up one of those two elements or both, it makes a huge difference. We've also got the Rapala Ripstop in the size down. This is the size 9. So the size 11 has 3 hooks on it. The size 9 has 2 hooks on it. And I've got that in a bunch of different colors. The Ripstop is an underrated jerkbait. Okay, so once I tried it and had success on it, it's so different that I almost felt like I couldn't help it. But I say that a lot on this channel, and that is just what an addict says, right? I've got 2 other small jerkbaits in here. Next size down in the Rapala X Wrap. I believe this is the size 8. They make this in some really cool patterns. But then I've also got the new Strike King KBD 100 jerkbait. They say this is a suspending bait. but it's not. You know, the 200 and 300 from Strike King are fairly decent suspending baits. Not perfect, but this guy, the J100, is a pretty fast floating bait. So I've played around with them a little bit in terms of the lead weight strips on the bottom, but I find that two of these little guys is pretty necessary. Now, if you want the bait to float back up, if you want that type of action, fish it straight. Now, of course, I've added a feathered treble to the back of this. I wanted a slightly different look and action out of this bait. I wanted this to be more of a floating style jerk bait where I'm working this between the surface and maybe 1 to 2 feet. Whereas this standard guy, especially when weighted to suspend, is meant to be in that like 2 to 3 or 2 to 4 foot zone. It is a shallow diving jerk bait relative to others, and that's a big part of why I bought it in the first place. Yeah, Will, you're absolutely right. The Pointer 78 and the Ripstop are both kind of secret jerk baits. Fantastic jerk baits. You know, the Pointer being a little bit deeper and more aggressive of a jerk bait, and the Ripstop being shallower and just so unique. I tend to fish it in more ways than I do most other jerk baits because of the confidence that tail gives me. I don't know. It's absolutely nuts that once you fish this bait and see it in the water for yourself, this tail, and how it is bent down. Can you see it on this one? Okay, you can see that. That's the Rapala Ripstop. It has a tail. And that tail makes the bait stop on a dime. Okay, so most jerk baits, when you're working them, pulling them, jerking them, whatever, you have to be pretty dialed in with your twitching and the slack that you're giving to make that bait stop after it jerks forward. Okay. But the Ripstop, I mean, you can be straight reeling that thing in and it's swimming and you stop and it will actually stop quickly. I mean, it's something that I don't think any of our brains really processed until we saw it. And I mean, it's pretty cool. Most baits, at least in our minds, when you stop it or you just accidentally don't leave slack in the line, that bait stops and then it does this, right? Stop, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Does that silly little wag forward. And yeah, so on top of that, you know, I've got some odds and ends. I got some random like rogues and bombers, Berkeley cutters and things like that. Those I don't really have like a real home for. And then from that, we get all the way down and we go super finesse, right? And we're down into like BFS range. So for jerk baits, I've only got, you know, these are that same X-Wrap size, the smaller, like 8 quarter-ounce size. Same with these dynamic lures, J-Spec. I talk about the dynamic lures HD trout a lot, but I don't talk about the J-Spec quite as much because I don't throw it for trout all that frequently. I mean, these are meant to be trout baits. So brown trout would munch this thing. I think it's a quarter ounce, but after that, I really go with Rapala Husky Jerk. Obviously got that in a bunch of different colors, you know, from more traditional to more ghosty patterns to then ultra classic. But those guys don't fit in the baby lipless cranks don't fit in either with my BFS box, which at this point looks like it's going to need to be a BFS jerk bait box, because if you'll notice, I've got sinking jerk baits down here, suspending jerk baits here, floating jerk baits here, and then micro size baits here, top water, bugs, poppers, and wake baits, and then micro crankbaits and micro jerk baits. With so this is another high. I mean, this box is probably another $500. You know, it scares me to think about going fishing somewhere and then accidentally leaving this somewhere, because I do love this box. And there's such a wide variety of baits that have made their way into this little collection. But yeah, that is probably the main box that has been getting organized as of late. Oh, Beaver Baron, dude. A couple years ago is when I bought a Guggen Swad bait for the first time. It's actually the only one I bought, and it worked amazing. I caught twice as many fish as my brother did that year. Dude, sick. So that's on that. Did you say the banger or the flat banger? Which one did you say? I'm sorry I missed a whole bunch of comments. So Will, I use a 6'9", 6'10" medium fast. 6'10" medium fast. I think my main jerkbait rod is a Lew's Custom Black. I just happened to get a really good deal on it a couple years back, and so that's my main one. But I also use my crankbait setup as a jerkbait and sometimes top water rod, and it's a 7-foot medium regular. You know, it's a Daiwa, so their actions are a little bit different. But yeah, I sit anywhere in that 6'9", 6'10", upwards of 7 foot, medium power. I prefer a fast action, but I'm fine with a little bit slower than that. But yeah, that's the rod that I typically prefer. You know, not anything out of the ordinary per se. Now, if I'm going bigger, I will go to a little bit heavier setup. So like the new St. Croix Victory of mine that I've got, I purchased thinking that it was going to become my dedicated chatterbait setup moving forward. But once I got it in my hands, I realized pretty quickly that it's a lot softer than I thought it would be. For a medium heavy moderate, it definitely seems like a medium. So I will potentially use that rod, but it's longer. I think it's a 7.2, maybe a 7.3. So maybe I would use that with heavier jerkbaits, but probably still not. I prefer not when I'm, you know, having to work the jerkbait sideways or up. I'd like to work the jerkbait. Of course, that looks inappropriate, but I'd prefer to work the jerkbait in front of me and just working it straight down as if I'm working a top water. And then depending on the conditions, if it warrants a more aggressive style retrieve, then I'm fine to go to the side and start cranking on that thing. But yep, you're right. No, don't be sorry. The MS American Shad color is only $1 more. So I don't know what Baron Beaver set or Beaver Baron. Good point, Tim. Shallow water killer, the lightning pointer. I will say, I hadn't necessarily like pigeonholed it as such because I've got a few other jerkbaits that, in my mind, are more go-to for shallow water situations. Instead of the lightning pointer, I'd go to. There's probably 3 or 4 other baits that I'd go to a lot quicker. I don't even want to talk JDM. But the Jackal re-range is definitely one of them. That ripstop that we already talked about for sure is one of them. And then I know there's 1 or 2 domestic ones. That are evading me at the moment. So yeah, a lot of jerk baits out there. And that doesn't include, the one-offs like the massive Kanata. You know what I rewatched recently the other day? Was some footage that I recorded last year with this guy right here. Does anyone know what this bait is? Yeah, Matt, I've got too many jerk baits, bro. Slender pointer over the regular. I'm not necessarily at that point yet. I like the slender pointer. I've only got a couple of them, and I've got them in the 97 size. I like the fact that 97 comes with 3 treble hooks on it, which is pretty rare. But Gator's Adventures, nice. You like Yozuri jerkbaits? I do too, but even more so than Yozuri jerkbaits, I like dual hardcore jerkbaits. They're both in the same family, right? But dual hardcore makes a slightly more refined bait. So let's see if I can show you side by side. Hardcore minnow. Okay. So this may or may not be a good example, but here's the Yozuri 3DB. Right? Yozuri 3DB jerkbait 110 SP. Okay. You'll notice that this bait has a weight transfer system. It's a very standard weight transfer system that slides from the back forward and then drops down. It's got some scaling on the bottom, which, Yozuri loves to sell and talk about how that affects the vibration and whatever else underwater. I'm not totally sure, but they've also got some internal foiling where the paint job lasts a long time. And yeah, these Yozuri jerkbaits, really solid. But the dual hardcore minnow flat 110 SP is the same profile. Right? I think it's the same mold, perhaps. But then what you get is a slightly different bill, different weighting, and a different weight transfer system and color scheme. So the dual hardcore minnow has a silent magnetic weight transfer system, which takes a lot of effort to get out. And then watch, slides right in front and then stays there. So just like the Jackal re-range, it's one of those that will scare you when you're pulling it out there, and that magnetic weight transfer system locks in place, or I guess unlocks. But the dual hardcore minnow 95 to me is the deal. Hardcore minnow flat 95. It's got 3 hooks on it. So pretty rare for a bait of this size. You know, it's really just like this and the Vision 110 Junior that will have 3 hooks. And then, like I was starting to say, the Lucky Craft slender pointer in the 97, but she's hiding. The Lucky Craft Pointer H3, which is newer. Here's the slender pointer, was just hiding from me. In that MS Japan shad, you can see it's got more of a greenback, but this is a Japan shad MS style color pattern. 3 hooks on it, smaller, 97 in millimeters, or in length. See, slender, narrow profile. Might draw a few more bites with the slender profile. But Matt, you tell us why. What was the magic word, Adam? I know I'm way behind on the comments, guys. I'm trying to catch up. The Ito Shiner is a bigger profile than the 110. Yes, it is. You want to see it? There's the Vision 110. There's the Ito Shiner. So that's side by side. The Ito Shiner is only a little bit taller, but it's also a little bit taller. So yes, the Ito Shiner is bigger. Man, when you've got a box like this, it's sometimes it's hard not to just sit around and stare in the box. You know what I mean? G-Fun, you've been watching quietly. All right, no problem. Hope you have a great rest of your night. Thank you for watching, G-Fun. Cheers. Good point. I didn't show you the X80 Trick Darter because it's smaller and is a 2-hook bait. And obviously, being 80 millimeters is going to be significantly smaller. But, yeah, there it is compared to the Ito Shiner. Pretty drastic, right? And we could just get the whole family out if we wanted to, since Matte shad is our favorite. I won't get any plus ones out, but here we are. Ow. And by whole family, I mean just the 4 baits we're just talking about. This is the Ito, or this is the X80 Trick Darter. This is the Vision 110 Junior. This is the Vision 110. And this is the Ito Shiner. Like that. Okay. Yeah. We're not going to be on too much longer tonight. Anything else you guys want to talk about real quick before we sign off? Yeah, why is that, Matt? The balsa minnow is kind of a lost style bait these days. And I don't have a great explanation for it. You know, I'll admit, I only showed you in this box of like my BFS sized baits that in the floating jerkbait section of this box, I have a lot of original Rapala floating minnows. And they're baits that, despite their age, there will always be a time and place. Now, that said, are there competitors these days more than there used to be in the past? Of course. So do you get baits like, you know, the Yozuri, floating minnow that didn't used to exist way back in the day? Yeah, you do. And it's an awesome bait. And I have a bunch of them. But the Rapala floating minnow in the balsa, it's special. It floats up so fast, and it almost begs to be fished as a topwater, you know? And every time I whip it out and start fishing it, I find myself doing that and just killing it on the retrieve and letting that thing sit up on the surface. And I find myself slow crawling it, you know, having it work like a wake bait. And then I'll speed it up and have it dive a little bit subsurface and then kill it, let it float back up. I'm more so just interested by what that bait does and how quickly it floats up and reacts. But yeah, I'm with you on that. You hardly ever fish a jerkbait. Yeah. Well, jerkbait is a confidence bait of mine, one that in Colorado, a lot of people use them. And I have over time gradually developed more confidence in them. And I still know that I need to be throwing a jerkbait about twice as much as I do. I pigeonhole a jerkbait more than I do a chatterbait. And here in Colorado, it should be the other way around. But it's just kind of the way that I learned. You know, I had fished a jerkbait growing up, but not with a bass fishing mindset like I have right now, you know? Interesting, dude. How do you know that, Matt? Dual hardcore baits are really popular in South Korea. I didn't know that, and that's a super wild, a fun fact, I suppose. Adam, you're right about that. Jermaine is diehard 6 cents. Could make recommendations about what? Oh, okay, okay. You're making suggestions. Yeah, 6 cents makes some good stuff. Well, you say upgrade in quality over Guggen. It's tough to say, Adam. You know, Guggen makes good soft plastics. I'll give them that straight up. There are a couple that I use. I use the Bandito bug, and I use the Rattling Ned, and then now the Rattling Chunk, which is their essentially Rage Craw, Kraken Craw, they call it, trimmed down a little bit and with a glass rattle already put in it. So I will say their soft plastics are high quality, but also high in salt content. So in some ways, like Yamamoto or Kitech in that regard, very high salt and low durability because those two go hand in hand. But they've got good action, an interesting and unique scent, and they get bit pretty well. So yeah, their hard baits, on the other hand, I struggle to wrap my head around and really get on board with. I've only got one or two, if that, and I think they're oh no, it's like the Ketchco baby bull shad and baby bull gill. I don't think I really even. Oh, one time I bought the baby glide bait. That was a huge mistake. Yeah, Will. I meant to touch on that, but Yozuri and Dual Hardcore are essentially one and the same. They're all part of the same overall company, which is why you notice between the two companies that a lot of their baits, the profiles are exactly the same. It's just the technologies within them are slightly different, but the packaging is the same. But Dual Hardcore is a slightly higher quality brand, in my opinion. One is the magnetic weight transfer system. Two is the paint jobs and the internal. And then I don't know why I'm a nitpicker on this, but that the printing on the top of the bait, I don't know why I prefer it to be like a little bit more unique than the most generic font ever made, which is what Yozuri has. So that's just me nitpicking. Mm. Man, I think that's one bait that I don't actually have. Um, no, I have there's a few baits that I don't have, but that noisy dock is one that I don't. See, Tom's working on some balsa baits. Where's Brendan right now? Brendan could be in here hanging out with us. You know, I will say we're down to 12 people. These are die hard, crazy. All of us are crazy. We're up late, right? I mean, it's after midnight my time. For those of you guys still up on the East Coast, it's crazy. JP, yep. Will, Matt, a lot of you guys are on the East Coast. You guys are nuts. Adam says bug baits. What? Are you sleeping? Bug baits. Um, all right. Yeah, it's about time to get out of here, guys. I'm trying to catch up on the comments. Will's out of here. Will Perriman. Okay. Guys, I can't catch up. Here, I'm caught up. Let's get out of here. Bug baits was the magic word. I said it. The magic word was bug baits. Well, you you tricked me then, dude. And Adam, where did you find 5-inch Senkos for $1.99 a pack? Because that's awesome. If you can find Yamamoto Senkos for the same price as Yum Dingers, dude, that's did you not like buy every single pack that they had? Because that's epic. Walmart doesn't sell Yamamoto where I am, dude. That's awesome. Your eyes are burning. Well, you guys are flying in the comments. Later. Okay, guys. Nice. Adam bought them all. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out tonight. Appreciate it. I'm going to down the hatch. And we are all going to have a good night. Sleep well. I'm going up to the mountains this weekend. It's my sister's birthday. She's turning 32. And we're going up as a larger family, the 14 of us, going skiing Saturday, Sunday. And I'm excited about it. Wish I could be fishing. I might do a little fly fishing if there's creeks to be fished. The Gore Creek up in Vale is good. So, guys, Spro Swivels, Adam, nice. Spro Swivels are good too. I'm sure you already know that. You know I've got Spro Swivels somewhere deep under here that I saw earlier tonight. There's a reason I'm digging. Who cares? Guys, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night. Hit the thumbs up if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And Matthew Acevedo, hit me up privately for your package. Caro, you too, because at this point, your package has earned some interest, and I owe you an extra 1 or 2 somethings. So let's be in touch, guys. Have a great rest of your night. See you soon. Bye.